Everybody Hates Rand is a Wheel of Time podcast that will contain spoilers for all 14 books. So if you're anti-spoiler, stop this, read all 14 books, and come back. We'll be here, waiting.
Our title is a joke and is meant to be taken as such. Everybody in this context refers to us and our cats. You are free to feel however you want about Rand. He's a fictional character. Please don't DM us.
The world is a mess, Dark One stretching out his hand. The dragon's reborn, the fire's been fanned, but everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand. Everybody hates Rand.
Okay, what's up, gamers?
What's up, gamers?
Yeah, I just have to be careful where I lean back. This room looks so empty without their...
I know, we finally got rid
tower.
of the cat tower Ed and Tybalt are always scratching in the background.
Not because they're always scratching at it in the background, but because they literally scratched it into oblivion.
Yeah, it was really sad.
Yeah, there was gore everywhere. Carpet gore.
Yeah, it was pretty gross. And there's like so much matted Tybalt hair in it because it was like impossible to clean.
He's just in the hallway
freak.
staring at us as
Tybalt
always.
has been a maniac today.
Yeah. He's a maniac. What would this podcast be if we couldn't start every episode with an update about our cat's insane and disgusting behaviors?
Yeah, well, cats are perverted little critters that we let live in our home for some reason.
True. You little freaks. You little freak. Okay. Speaking of pervert.
Yeah, speaking of perverts, it's perversion time with Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson.
Pervert o'clock.
Yeah.
With the hybrid Brobert Janderson.
Brobert Janderson. Robert.
God almighty.
Brandbert.
Did you hear about the, article that came out about Brandon Sanderson?
No.
It was, I haven't read it as a disclaimer. I know it was, a thing on Twitter. All I heard about it was that this dude wrote an article about Brandon Sanderson and just was, really mean the whole time. Not in a, constructive, here are things to be critical about in his books and his work, or the fact that he's a member of the Mormon Church way.
Sure.
But just sort of, I don't like him, he's a nerd. It was just sort of bullying.
It's so rude.
And everyone was like, what the fuck? So just to be clear, when I called Brandon Robert a pervert, I'm not attempting to add to that particular discourse. I'm saying these chapters are pervert central.
Yeah.
In their treatment of women specifically. More spanking to come. That's the spoiler alert. So yeah, this is Everybody Hates Rand, not Everybody Hates Brandon Sanders.
No.
Your friendly neighborhood Wheelie Time podcast. I'm Emily Jushaw. Here's Ed.
And I'm Sally Goodger.
He's here to sniff at the
Do you want to read the book?
Worst book. You can't read, Ed.
That's embarrassing.
I mean, maybe you could. That would be a real shock. Maybe that's why you're always trying to sit on our laps when we
What are you reading?
Books.
What are you reading,
Update us on your literary opinions, Ed. Anyway.
You could have spoken volumes then, and we'll never know.
Well, you might have been thinking something like, James Joyce sucks.
Well, that would be a correct opinion, Edmund. Okay, you're right on the microphone.
Yeah,
come on.
You gotta move, my guy.
Hop over. Oh, come on.
Oh,
Come
move that
on.
butt.
Oh.
Okay. You're the worst creature alive. Okay. We read 2 chapters, and these 2 chapters are a great example, I think, of why we'll primarily be reading in 3-chapter chunks, because I found that these 2 chapters in particular were really just rehashings of things that we already knew. I found myself skimming quite a bit at times.
Yeah.
But they are a Rand chapter followed by an Edwene chapter, and I believe the chapter after Edwene is an entirely different point of view, which is going to be typical of these last few books. We're departing from the, for lack of a better term, chunked points of view.
Yeah.
And now we're getting into rapid fire switching one after another. I think the most we ever really get from a single point of view is like maybe 2 chapters back to back.
Yeah.
I think that's an attempt on Brandon Sanderson's part to speed up the narrative.
Yeah.
And sort of add more tension. You know, if we're hopping rapidly between a lot of different plots, then it's a lot easier to keep going.
Yeah, it picks up the pace for sure. We've said this in the podcast before, but like the counterpoint to this is if you've ever read the Lord of the Rings books, you get into the Two Towers and all of a sudden you spend half a book with one point of view and then you rehash the same events.
Mm-hmm.
The other plot. Again, I know we've said this, but this is just like the most egregious example I can think of it because I think Tolkien did himself some disservice with that because the Helm's Deep plot absolutely fucks, and then the walking through Mordor is important but very boring.
Yeah, it's like thematically interesting but not fun.
Yeah,
or good to read about.
But when you like are in Fellowship and you're like moving along a little bit faster,
oh my god, Ed!
He adamantly refuses to leave the microphone. He craves an audience. I live for the applause. Applause.
You just heard a lot of feedback. That was why.
So anyway, I would agree. And I mean, I did think it read faster. That was one of my notes, that it was like easier to get through 2 chapters when I'm like, oh, at least I'm in an entirely different setting.
Yeah, I agree. It does quicken the pace. I think I don't have anything against it. I think it maybe starts to suffer a little bit in the last book, A Memory of Light, when we have such rapid fire points of view. Mm-hmm. We have so many of them in a row that it becomes sort of impossible to form a cohesive narrative.
Yeah.
But in this particular instance, I think it's working, and I think it's a good attempt by Brandon to salvage what was becoming increasingly unmanageable in the last few Robert Jordan books, and I think one of the big reasons people did not enjoy those books as a reading experience.
Yeah.
Most people, obviously not all people, but like everyone talks about the like long slogging plots in those last few books. And those plots would probably not feel as long and slogging if there'd been a little bit more maneuverability on Jordan's part. So, that's the little caveat about this book's structure, I guess.
Yes.
We get the first little monologue bit about the wind moving around. Brandon does a fun thing where he sort of drags that wind itself into the narrative. Mm-hmm. That's not particularly new. Robert Jordan has done that in the past. Think of like The Great Hunt starts with the wind, and the wind itself almost pushes Rand off the tower. Mm. But Brandon, I think, more obviously pushes that to the forefront by having the wind be like a normal wind, but then it meets an evil wind, and the wind is blowing in 2 separate directions outside of where Rand is staying. Rand is in a new manor house in Eridoman. We have departed the manor house that was in Tyr, Lord Algarin's, and are now in a different one, and we are told that he's been in several over the last
few days. Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell. A couple weeks, I think, at most.
They're hopping around a lot.
Yeah.
Rand's just sitting there staring out at the fucking wind and sort of just being, he's just, like, thinking a lot. Yeah. I don't know. It's hard when I don't have 2 books. I know I could, but it's hard when I don't have 2 books in front of me to, like, literally compare. But one of the things I feel like is happening in the switch from Robert Jordan to Brandon Sanderson is that characters are significantly more introspective. Mm. I won't say characters were never introspective before. That certainly wasn't true, but I think we get a lot more, like, multiple pages in a row of just Rand being like, here's not just what's going on with me, what has happened, but here's what's going on with me, here's everything I think and feel about it, and here's what's going to happen, here are my plans. Like, Rand is telling us sort of, like, what his plans are, which has been conspicuously missing in the last few books.
Yeah.
Whenever we've had a Rand point of view, he's just been very present-focused.
Yeah.
I feel like the same thing, to a lesser extent, is happening with Edgeween. I don't know how to, I'm trying to think of a good way to put this. I think there's a level of mediation going on with Brandon Sanderson's narrative style here, wherein characters are talking a lot more about things before they do them, or rather thinking about them. In Robert Jordan's books, we still had these like long points of view, but for the most part, characters were those long sort of periods of introspection were accompanied by action.
Yeah.
Rather than just Rand staring out a window.
No, that's really interesting. When I was reading these 2 chapters, I was like, I know something feels different between reading Robert Jordan and reading Brandon Sanderson writing The Wheel of Time. But then I was like, I can't quite put my finger on it, you know? So it's always going to be in the back of my mind. But I think that's a really huge part of it. Like, I don't know if I've ever seen Rand talk about his feelings, 1, at all, or 2.
I think it's also just like a little more blatant. I don't want to say that Brandon Sanderson is talking down to us a little bit more. I think he's just used to a narrative style that is somewhat more accessible than Robert Jordan's. But like, we're getting this metaphor about Rand feeling like he has to turn into steel or whatever in order to not cry or feel anything again or whatever the fuck. Like, that is getting pounded on the head repeatedly throughout.
Yeah.
And I know Robert Jordan isn't exactly subtle with his metaphors, but it feels like we're, I don't know, getting it a lot more, or maybe it's that individual chapters are more set up to have individual themes. Like, in this one, it happens to be that Rand is obviously dealing with a lot of trauma, but refuses to deal with the trauma and is framing that in terms of, like, steel. I don't know. This is probably not a very fun or useful thing to talk about.
No, I think it's really interesting. I'm going to be thinking more about this as we move through the book, because I do think there's, like, an important stylistic difference. And I think mediation is, like, the exact word for it. Mediation is another thing we've talked about on the podcast. But when we're talking about mediating in writing, it's basically, like, the author standing between what the character is doing and what the reader is experiencing, you know? So instead of, like, showing your character crying, it'll be like, John feels sad, you know? Like, it's an attempt to more or less kind of... I can't think of anything to describe it that doesn't feel negative. I don't think mediation is necessarily a bad thing. That's my caveat. But it's a little bit more like spoon-feeding what's going on. And Emily's right. Like, it is a more accessible thing. You see it a lot in books aimed at younger readers. You see it a lot in more, like, popular fiction. And it just feels more accessible. It's easier to read. So it can often be a good thing. Or if someone's using it too much, it feels annoying. So
Yeah, I think this isn't something we're going to answer in the first 2 chapters, but it is something we're going to be thinking about.
It does feel distinctly different.
Yeah. Anyway, Rand is standing there staring out the window. Min comes up acting all, like, soft and docile and very unmin-like in my mind.
You guys couldn't see me, obviously, but I just rolled my eyes so hard.
It's like she's walking on eggshells after Rand loses his hand, but it's like, if it's been a few weeks, I just don't believe Min would be doing that anymore.
Yeah, she's not really that type of person.
I also just, like, I don't know, Min's character has been annoying us from basically the second she was introduced, but she's particularly annoying when she is trying to accommodate Rand's lack of ability to process trauma.
Yeah.
By just being super gentle and nice to him.
Sure.
Like, obviously you should be very gentle and nice to people who have experienced trauma, but, like, it's not helpful. It's no longer helpful.
Yeah, like, it's no longer helpful. Like, to a certain extent, not to a certain extent, to a large extent, people have to be accountable for the way they respond to things. Like, you should hold space for the fact that you cannot respond in the exact moment of a trauma in a good way, but a few weeks later, you should be able to articulate, especially to your partner, what's going on.
Yeah.
And be able to kind of, like, you know, be a grown-up and handle your feelings.
Yeah, and the way we've talked in the past about how Min has the narrative has pushed her to become just sort of an accessory to Rand rather than someone with her own agency and points of view. It's like there's a lot going on here that Min could be reacting to. Min's partner has just suffered a trauma she was also involved in, and adjacent to that trauma, she's probably been traumatized herself. He refuses to talk about it, process it, even talk about it to her in any sort of meaningful way. Like, at this point, is Min feeling like maybe I'm not helpful here?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Do I still love him, but like, is this relationship working? Is this something that's working when he is so closed off emotionally? Like, he's no longer a good partner in the relationship.
Yeah, 100%.
But as we've also talked about in the past, Min is very trapped by the fact that she has this like bond with Rand, and obviously she was the one who pushed for that, but like, we're not even able to be like, is she regretting that?
Yeah.
We're just like, Min just has to be this perfect little wifey next to Rand, who's just like there to coddle him and support him.
Yeah. And yes.
It's incredibly annoying.
It is incredibly annoying because it's like, I think it is very interesting to watch people in relationships, in whatever relationship that is, you know. I almost just said go through situations, as if that is not what people are doing all the time.
Every day I wake up hoping I won't go through a single situation.
I mean, that is what I hope.
Net zero situations is my goal.
Situations. I don't want any situations. But it's
Friday, I'm gonna log in. No situations today, everyone. That's enough for me. I'm going to see John Wick. I'm going to watch him get into situations.
Yeah, I'm going to project onto someone else's situations. Oh God, what was I even trying to say? It's interesting to watch people in relationship to one another respond to the same big event, whatever that big event is. It's interesting to see how the big event changes them, and it's interesting to see how the big event changes their dynamic. And this extremely large event just hasn't changed their dynamic at all. And like you said, there could be like the underlying emotional core behind men being like, I'm trying very hard to make sure this doesn't change our dynamic because I feel like that's what I need to do in this situation. But we just don't get that. So
we just don't know. Yeah, I'm also frustrated that like Rand is constantly concerned about like Min's emotional, her physical well-being, not her emotional well-being.
Yeah.
Or rather, he's concerned about her emotional well-being in regards to him. He's cognizant all the time of how she feels about him or things through the bond, but he's never like, is my behavior minimizing her or changing her in a way that she maybe doesn't want to be changed?
Yeah.
You know, just not a lot of, for someone who's being so introspective and sort of self-flagellating about literally every situation in his life. Rand is just like, as long as Min is standing next to me, projecting love, then everything's fine.
Yeah, which is just like, ain't that how men have thought about women through all of human history? I care about women because I want them to be safe, because their safety is a reflection of my ability to protect them and is therefore a reflection of my masculinity. Anything else, they also need to love me unconditionally, otherwise they're just like some dumb useless whore. Beyond those two things, I don't give a shit.
And he's like, why is she wearing embroidery? I hate her.
He's like, why would she make
an effort to look nice? Oh my God, you guys, I've referenced so often the book Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus on this podcast. And I just want to say, if you're unfamiliar with that text, there's a great podcast called If Books Could Kill that just covered it pretty recently. You can find it anywhere. It talks about what's in the book, the guy who wrote the book, a lot of things. But I also just want to clarify, when I make that reference, I am talking about very specifically the notion of gender essentialism, the idea that men are inherently different from women, and that they, on several levels, just simply can't connect or understand each other. Yeah. And so in relationships, you have to make all these sorts of, well, generally the women have to, according to this guy, You have to make all sorts of accommodations toward the other person's weirdness. Mm-hmm. You have to try and understand where they're coming from, you know?
Yeah.
So, gender essentialism is bullshit.
Yes.
Most of us are aware of that in the 21st century, but that's where both that book was coming from and where very clearly Robert Jordan was coming from when he wrote these books. And it's super annoying, especially reading these in 2023.
Yeah.
God, it really aged them in such a...
Yeah, it did really age them. There's also some disgusting line in this chapter where Rand's like, Men is so, like, petite and feminine next to me. She's so
Oh my God.
small in stature, and I'm so large in stature.
We're just such a man and a woman. A real Adam and
like,
Eve.
Kay, could you deal with your various mental health crises or something?
I know. Anyway, Min's like, what's going on? Rand's like, the wind is blowing 2 separate directions, and they just stand there watching for a little bit, like, ooh, that's not good.
Yeah.
Rand's like, I wonder if Grendal's here, kind of out of nowhere, and Min's like, why? He's like, well, because it makes sense that she would be here, you know? She'd be away from everything, and blah, 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 but he's not like, here's what we're gonna have to do to accommodate Grendel, or like, here's what we need to be on the lookout for.
Yeah.
He's just sort of like, I wonder if she's here.
I also want to say that they're in, like, a log cabin.
Oh yeah, they're in a log cabin mansion, which is what this thing on the cover is supposed to be.
Which is just, like, a pretty funny smash cut of 2 ideas when you think about it. A log cabin mansion.
Yeah.
And
It's
I
like
also...
a ski lodge.
Yeah, that's probably the way I need to be conceptualizing it, as, like, a ski lodge. Because I was reading it and I was like, a log cabin? And I was like, one single room. And he's like, no, it's massive. And I was like, one gigantic room.
One incredibly large room.
I was like,
I was trying to figure out, like, what the region is here.
Yeah.
Eridomont. I finally figured out, like, maybe it's got Pacific Northwest vibes.
Yeah, like, it's that type of
Yeah,
climb.
talking about how, like, it's all, you know, fir trees and whatever. And I was like, log cabins. It must be, like, mountainy kind of.
Yeah.
But it's, like, the only time I guess we haven't really been in Eridomont. The closest we've been is Falm.
Yeah.
And the Ulmith Plain. So, again, I don't really know. But, like, when you look at the map of Eridomont, it's not, like, foresty.
Oh, yeah. Is he just, like, this one? Where even are we?
I don't know where. I guess Eridomont,
Is that...
yeah, goes across the mountains.
And then it's just, like, this little bit. Are these borders or rivers?
They're borders.
Oh, yeah, the lines. I was looking at
But
this
it's
river, but
hard because some borders because the borders of countries don't always touch each other. See, this is the border of Terrebonne. This is the border of Eridomont. There's all that space. It looks like an entire separate country, but it's not.
It also, this is so petty and dumb. It bothers me that the borders on the map don't line up with the rivers on the map because, like, rivers were, you know, a pretty common way to divide up territory.
Yeah.
That's stupid, I know, but...
No, I don't. I think it just goes to the mountains. I think the mountains are...
The border? Yeah, so where the fuck are they?
Yeah, who knows?
Anyway, Rand's in a ski lodge.
Rand's in a ski lodge. They're chatting. Katsuan and Nynaeve and Olivia come in and are like, yes, we've just returned from chatting with Semiraj, who, go figure, isn't telling us shit. And Katsuan's like, obviously if we could torture her a little bit, then maybe she'd give us something. And Rand is like, no. Absolutely no torturing, because I don't want to torture women. You know, it would be one thing if Rand was taking the stance that torture is wrong.
Yeah.
But he's like, specifically, I don't want to torture women.
Yeah. Which is just like, my guy... We make this point too many times.
Yeah.
End of point.
End of point. We've been there. And it's like, Katsuan and Nynaeve and everyone is like, this is ridiculous. But they don't think it's ridiculous necessarily because Semiraj is a woman, and that's Rand's reasoning. They think it's ridiculous because Semiraj is so evil that it transcends gender.
Yeah.
They're like, it shouldn't even count that she's a woman because she's just so evil.
Yeah, and they also, like, I do think this is a pretty funny point where they're like, this is the one who tortures people for, like,
Fun.
a hobby.
Yeah, she's like Miss Torture.
Yeah, Lutheran in the background is like, she once tortured an entire city. And Rand's like, the woman.
And I was like, logistically, how?
Yeah. I was thinking the same. I was like, she just, like, walked down the street and, like,
Yeah, how do you...
knocked on doors.
Never, I don't want to know. I don't actually want any details. I don't want to know what Robert Jordan and Brando would come up with. But yeah, Rand's like, I can't do it. And Cadswan's like, okay, well then we're not gonna get anything from her. And Rand's like, well, just keep trying. Just keep asking questions. This is setting up the plot, that I guess Cadswan specifically will be going through for the first, I don't know, half of this book, wherein she is trying to figure out a way to, quote, break Semiraj without, quote, torturing her. Without sort of crossing that boundary that Rand has set. And it's not a very satisfying plot, obviously, because it's all centered around torture and what is permissible and what isn't. Just sort of according to individual characters' codes of ethics rather than any sort of overarching global code of ethics that humanity has decided on. And it's just like, again, it would be different. I think if it was a plot wherein Cadswan was like, we are not going to kill this woman because she's valuable for whatever reason. She must have something. She must know things about whatever's going on, but also we're not going to torture her because torture is wrong. Let's start thinking conceptually about, like, the ways in which we could still get her to talk. That might be interesting, but because it's overlaid constantly with the fact that we're not torturing her because Rand has weird hang-ups about hurting women, it's just annoying. Yeah. It's also just like, just kill Semiraj. I know it's the same thing with Rand, and I know also that summary execution is not great, but, like, we are going back to what we've talked about previously, which is that at a certain point, you just gotta kill the bad guys.
Yeah, you just gotta do it. Like, what do you want with Semiraj anyway?
Yeah, they're like, Semiraj must have such information. And I'm like, what information could she give you at this point? Yeah. Where Grendel is, Grendel's probably an Aerodom. Like, nothing has... At this point, Rand, you have Luce Thurin's memory, so there's not much she can give you.
Yeah, focus on that relationship.
Which he does. He and Luce Thurin are yelling at each other at one point, and Rand yells out loud, and everyone's like, avoid eye contact.
Everyone's like, okay.
Everyone's like, fun. This is fun.
This is happening now. Okay.
I love this.
I know not to, like, make everything about, disability justice, but, like, I feel like not a single person has ever tried to be like, Rand might be experiencing hallucinations. Is there any way we can help with that?
Yeah, they're all just like, well, Semiraj, a random evil person, told us.
She diagnosed him, and that's the end of it.
As we all know, Semiraj, after she tortured an entire city, surely didn't lose her medical degree.
She's a licensed, board-certified psychologist.
Yeah, the board was like, she should keep it. She proved her knowledge of the human mind and psyche when she systematically broke it for
years upon years upon years.
Listen, people don't always tell you this, but there are 2 ways you can earn a doctorate. All right.
Yeah, we all know the second one is systematically torturing an entire city.
Systematically killing people.
Yeah.
Jack the Ripper just wanted his doctorate.
Yeah, he just didn't want to pay that tuition, Yeah,
the reverse method.
Yeah.
The secret one.
Reverse method. The dark method of getting your PhD.
Kill enough people. You get to be an MD. Because patently you've proven you know how the human body works.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to Egg. Egg, again, we're getting a lot of meditation about pain and fucking and as Sally pointed out to me not just moments ago, we just ended the world's most masturbatory meditation about how we shouldn't torture women, and we smash cut to Egg being tortured.
The self-awareness is at 0.
Yeah, and just to, like, crystallize that for you, clearly what's going on here is that the Wheel of Time book series considers some things torture and some things are not torture.
Yes.
And the line there seems to be something about perhaps lasting damage, because Edwin and everyone else who's getting spanked systematically will recover from those wounds physically, if not psychologically, pretty quickly, then it's not torture. Or perhaps it's the intent of torture, except we really lose that here because we're using the same language to talk about Semiraj that Sylviana casually uses to talk to Egg. Like, Sylviana's like, I am going to break you. Aleda or whoever is like, you need to be broken. The same way that we're talking about Semiraj being broken. So, you guys, it's all torture. And the lack of self-awareness there is pretty grating.
Yeah.
There is more self-awareness in the fact that Brandon has juxtaposed these two chapters, and they are both thematically about emotional reactions to pain. This is, again, I think, because Rand is sort of our central male character, and Edwina is arguably our central female character, meant to be a gender commentary. Don't really want to think about that, though.
Women just have to submit to pain, the way we have to submit to everything.
And have to submit in order to channel.
Yeah.
Rand's whole thing is, I can't possibly show emotion or react to trauma because I just have to be strong and blah, 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 blah. And Edwina is all like, what are the ways that I can react to pain in a way that I will master it, but, you know, I don't have any power in this situation, so blah, 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 blah. I just have to submit to it. And then eventually, by openly emoting, then that is how I conquer pain. Which are two very gender stereotypical ways of coping with trauma. Edwina is like, women be crying.
Yeah.
Women be shopping.
Yeah.
And Rand is like, men be closing themselves off from all of their loved ones and refusing to go to therapy.
Yeah, they do.
So that's what's going on here. Anyway, Edwina is getting spanked yet again by Sylviana. At the end of this, she's like, I only had 2 tears, so I'm making such progress. And Sylviana's like, okay, well, see you in the morning, I guess. And Egg's like, I have to go, or Sylviana's like, go to dinner. And Egg's like, oh, well, I have to go to attend Aleda. So we are literally picking up the same day.
Yeah.
That we left Egg on Knife of Dreams. Egg's like, I have to go attend Aleda, so I don't have time for dinner. Sylviana's like, okay, well then go to dinner afterward, and then after that you have to come back to me to get beaten, because Aleda is obviously going to want that to happen. Egg's like, okay. Leaves, takes her fork route, tries to talk to the 2 red sisters who are chatting with her, and is like, you guys should be really critical of Aleda because she's representing the Red Aja, so when she makes an idiot out of herself, she's making an idiot out of all of you.
Yeah.
And they're like, shut the fuck up. And Egg's like, why did I even try to reason with Reds? They're all such hideous lesbians. Can't be reasoned with. God damn it. Edwina wanders for a bit through the tower, comes across a dead end because the tower, like the Palace of Camelin, is now shifting its layout. They also run into a, like, it's either a tapestry or a painting that has been changed.
Yeah,
which is also spooky, so you've still got some of those fun vibes going on. Like, now there's, like, eyes dripping blood or whatever the hell.
Haunted. The tower's haunted.
Tower's haunted. Then they get up to Aleda's room. Edwina knocks and enters, is like, wow, Aleda is really this power-hungry tyrant, as evidenced by the fact that she lives in luxury. Swan, of course, who was perfect, would never have done something like that. And it's like, listen, some people just like fancy rugs.
Yeah,
you know?
Is that a crime?
Maximalism? Have you heard of it?
I would love to have a maximalist house.
I agree that I wouldn't really want to be surrounded by the colors red and white 100% of the time. Which Aleda does. I'd feel like I was inside some creature's stomach, but...
Yeah. Gotta
That's
go
where
with, like,
we're
a
at.
softer palette, you know, blues and greens.
Yeah, get some, like, interesting color interactions there. Anyway, the door is answered by Midani, who we know from previous books is one of the spies that was sent to the White Tower by the rebels and was quickly discovered by the Black Aja Hunters, a group that we'll be reconnecting with later in this book. And they forced her to, I believe, take another oath that she would be loyal to them or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. I don't know how they did it.
Or that she wouldn't reveal them or something, but basically she's now operating under their orders. Or perhaps she's just being blackmailed into doing this. But they were like, go, reconnect with Aleda. I think also the Red Aja is telling Madani to do this. I feel like everyone is telling Madani, hey, go fuck Aleda because no one has an in with her anymore and she's crazy. And Madani's like, pussy isn't going to make her less crazy.
Yeah.
So, like, maybe we can disconnect those two.
Yeah.
Those two notions. Aleda is also clearly aware as Edwin catches on that Madani is a spy and is taunting her with that knowledge. So Madani's also just being psychologically tortured throughout this entire thing. And is also being forced to make herself into a sex object. Whether or not she and Aleda have consummated any sort of relationship is unknown to us, because Brandon and Robert don't want to actually talk about lesbians having sex. They just want to allude to it.
Yeah.
In a sort of whatever creepiest way possible.
Yeah.
So that's super fun. Edwin has this whole psychological thing before she even enters the room where she's like, I really am going to struggle to, like, hold my tongue around Aleda, so I just need to remember to keep my eyes on the prize, because pissing off Aleda is just going to get me thrown in the dungeon or something else, so I just need to, focus on the big picture. And it's like, yes, duh.
Good job, Egg.
But while she's in this room, she's listening to this conversation, and Aleda says, like, two things that make her mad. And she just gets so mad that she has to drop the soup so she can leave.
Yeah.
The things Aleda says, ironically enough, are that she doesn't believe the Shanshan are a threat, and that she's thinking of adding a fourth oath to the oath rod, which is that people will have to take an oath of fealty to the Amerlin. Edwin, noted recipient of oaths of fealty.
Yeah.
Doesn't even think.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something I did.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously it wasn't on the oath rod, but Egg, it was also on the oath rod because these women are under an oath of truth. So, like, it sort of counts.
Yeah.
Egg's just like, God, Aleda is shitting all over all of the sacred ideals of the White Tower. And it's like, bestie, look in a mirror.
Yeah.
Anyway, she drops the soup. Aleda starts screaming at her. Egg, while she's cleaning it up with Madani, is like, you need to send for me so that we can talk. Madani's like, and Egg is like, listen, I see what you're doing, and I acknowledge and respect it. And Madani's like, thank you, I just want some acknowledgement in my job performance. And I'm like, Egg, maybe you could say, Madani, for your personal safety, fucking stop what you're doing.
Yeah.
Because this is heinous.
Yeah.
But no. Egg makes her escape and goes back up to Sylviana. One wonders when Sylviana fucking sleeps.
Yeah,
She's
gosh.
constantly just beating Egg. Like, girl's gonna get arthritis at this rate.
Oh, yeah, I bet she already does.
Yeah, early onset. But Egg shows up, tells her what happened. Sylviana starts beating her, and while Egg is being beaten, she's like, you know what? This is just so stupid. And it would have been so funny if it was like, a meta-narrative moment where she was like, I can't fucking believe this. Rand is probably somewhere
Yeah. In a log cabin.
beating himself up about the notion of even torturing women. And here I am in the women place.
Yeah.
being tortured relentlessly. Hey, it turns out women aren't any better than men. We're all just people who sort of suck.
Yeah.
And sometimes are really good to each other, but not at this moment.
No.
But no, instead it's Egg being like, I'm just so sad about how Aleda has fucked up so badly because I'm so much better. And that's... people have way more reason to cry about that, so what even is this physical pain that I'm enduring? It's nothing. I can just laugh through this. Which is what she does. And Sylviana's like, are you Sylviana reacts more to Edwin laughing while taking a beating
Yeah.
than anyone does to Rand literally speaking to Luce the Rand.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is pretty funny. And then they're just like, well, the end. Egg's like gung-ho, ready to keep going. So, you guys,
Jesus.
it was a rough couple of chapters, is what I'll say. That's all I'll say. Oh god, and the next few are gonna be even worse.
Oh no.
I'm really sorry to let you guys know this, but Gawain is more of a presence in this book.
The one nice thing about the slog is that Gawain presence has been minimal.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on here. The effect is that it makes Gawain seem like Brandon Sanderson's pet character. Because suddenly he's appearing again, you know?
Sure.
Sort of en masse. And obviously what's happening is that, you know, Robert Jordan just hasn't written about him in a while, and now he's becoming important to the plot again, but it just ties him to Brandon Sanderson in my head.
Yes,
Which I don't
like Brandon's picked him up and is like, what a shiny little boy.
What a shiny little idiot. Here he is. So, guys, that's the first couple chapters of The Gathering Storm. It's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Mr. Jeans.
Mr. Jeans and himself. Yeah. Maybe at some point we'll stop reading about women being beaten, but
Not
not
this
holding
book,
out
baby.
hope.
Not this book. Okay. Thanks for listening. Thanks to Glenna McKenzie for our theme song. Thanks to our thanks to our patrons on Patreon and our followers on social media.
Yeah, you guys rock. You guys are superstars.
Do you have anything else to add?
Just a reminder that we have a bookshop.org affiliate page where you can buy books if you are so inclined. The URL is linked on all our social media accounts, but it's just bookshop.org/shop/everybody-hates-Rand. And the books you buy through that page, EHR gets 10% of that purchase back, and then we turn around and match that if we are able to, and donate that to mutual aid and direct aid requests prioritizing Black and Indigenous trans people. So if you want to make your book purchasing go a little bit farther, check that out.
Do you have a sign-off?
Yeah. I'm started a new medication,
Okay.
and it's making me pretty sick. So I was Googling to, like, see the side effects, be like, is this normal? And it listed all the, like, side effects that I have. And then it was like, but it's also possible that this is just the way the disease makes you feel. And I was like,
Well,
so, what?
So, the side effects are just more of the disease?
Yeah. I was like,
In what possible way does that count as a functional medication then?
I was like, I don't know what the fuck to do with this.
Oh my god.
Yeah, pretty funny.
Jesus Christ. Okay, both the boys are in the hallway waiting.
Freaks.
Have a good week,
God,
everyone.
Bye.